Hello everyone, and welcome to the next video in our series on PyGame. In this video, we're going to look at how we can make some shapes appear and do some simple animations. So the first thing we're going to need to do is open up our idle Python editor. Once we have that open, we're going to create a new file. So we're going to go File, New File, and I like to save mine right away. So I'm going to go File, Save As, and give it a name. So now I have my animations file, and I want to go ahead and get that starter file. So I'm going to go to the Program Arcade Games with Python and PyGame textbook and go to Chapter 5. And I'm going to scroll all the way down to the Open a Blank Window base template. Now you could just download this template, launch it, save as something else. I'm just going to copy and paste it for ease. If you want to know what the different parts of this file mean, please see previous videos because I definitely went through and explained the different pieces of it. Note that there's more limited colors here. If you want a slightly larger set of colors, there's more here. And if you would like to create your own colors, you can do that as well. So let's go ahead and start drawing. So we're going to scroll down inside our main program loop, right? We're not going to worry about our game logic yet. This is all our screen clearing thing, and so we're going to put our drawing code down here. Now to figure out which kind of things we're going to draw, we have a couple of options. If you're in my class, you have access to this PyGame reference Google Doc, which maybe I will just make available to everyone. Which has the simplified version of some of the common shapes that we want to draw. If you are not in my class, and you're looking at the Program Arcade Games with Python, or just the PyGame website, PyGame.org has in its docs many different things that you can draw as well. So this will show you some shapes. The PyGame docs will show you some shapes. So how to do drawing, how to draw lines, adding loops and offsets, etc. You can see some different things. So if you go down to the drawing introduction, we're just going to draw a simple rectangle. So to draw a simple rectangle, all we need to do is type pygame.draw.rect, and then we're going to pass it the screen object, which we declared up here where we set the display mode, because that's telling it where we want this rectangle to show up on the screen. Then we're going to pass it the color we want, so we can use any of the colors that we've declared. So we could use red or green, blue, whichever colors have been declared. And then we're going to pass it a list in square brackets. And so when we're drawing a rectangle, the list that we're passing contains 4 elements. It contains the X position, the Y position, the width, and the height. And if we look back at when we looked at the display of graphics, you'll remember that the X and Y coordinate are in the top corner. So the bigger we make the Y, the further down the screen it'll be. The bigger we make the X, the further to the right it will be. The width and height is obviously going to be the width and height of the rectangle. Now, because we made our screen size 700 by 500, we want to make sure that we're displaying our rectangle in that size. So I'm going to have the X coordinate be 100. The Y coordinate will be 50. And we're just going to make this a 25 by 25 pixel rectangle. So we can run our program and see how that looks. And we should see a little red square appear. So we can see that it's 100 pixels to the right, 50 pixels down. We're looking at this top corner, by the way, for the XY coordinates. And then it's another 25 pixels over to the right and 25 pixels down to actually draw the rectangle. So if we want to change the dimensions at all, let's say we're like, we want it to be a much bigger rectangle. We could make this even 250 by 250. And you'll see that although it's located in the same top corner, the square itself is quite a bit bigger. We can make the X position longer. Let's say we want a nice rectangle to go the whole width of the screen. The maximum X coordinate width that we can have is 700, but this is going to actually go off the edge of the screen. So it's actually coming over here because we're still offsetting the X. So if we set the X to be 0 so that it aligns with the left-hand side, we can see that our rectangle is now the width of the screen. Now looking at a red bar on our screen like this, that's not super useful. But if we move it, say, down to the bottom of the screen, so we know the screen is 500 pixels tall. So if it's 500 pixels tall, and we start at about 400 pixels, and we make it 100 pixels, so 400 plus 100 should take us all the way to the bottom of the screen, and run that, we can get a rectangle along the bottom of our screen. Again, with red, not super useful looking at this point, but if we change it to, say, green, we can use this simple rectangle to create a grass look in our screen. And if we wanted to, we could draw another rectangle on the screen. I'm going to make this one blue. I'm going to add, I want this one to start at 0, 0, because I'm going to have this whole top part be blue like the sky. I know that the Y is a total of 500, but the grass is 100, so the Y is going to be 400. And the X is going to be the full width of the screen, so 700 pixels. So now when I run that, I get this excellent, oh, I might have mixed up my, oh, it's width and height. So all I've done here is I've mixed up width and height. Easy mistakes to make, easy mistakes to fix. So we'll do that. And we get this sort of blue sky, green grass thing. Now this blue and green is actually quite obnoxious in my opinion. I wouldn't use these two colors together. So I'm going to go ahead and create a sky blue. So I'm going to go online and I'm going to go find a Rgb Color Picker. There's tons of them out there. You can just use the standard Google one if you want, or you can go look at ones that are more circles, give you a little bit more example. So I'm going to create a sky blue color at the top here. I'll just do it right below blue. So I'm going to do, we'll keep the same capitals, sky blue. And I need to find RGB. So I'm going to click somewhere in this blue range. And then I'm going to find what I want to be a nice sky blue. Let's see here. What about maybe this one? That's a nice sky blue color. So I'm going to take this RGB value, 204, 235, and 255. And I'm just going to paste it in right there. Then I'm going to go down and change our blue to sky blue. I'm going to run this and see how it looks. I like that a lot better. My blue is looking better. My green for my grass is still pretty bright and obnoxious. So I'm going to use the same color picker. Go find more of a grass shade of green that I want. Maybe I want to go more foresty. And pick just whatever shade that you think looks a little bit better for grass. And we're going to do the same thing. We can go create different shades. So I might even call mine grass green. And then I'm going to take the RGB values. And I'm going to run it and just see how that looks. That's still a pretty, oh, I need to go change my green down here too. I think it was grass green. One module. And we see that we have the darker green with the more pale blue. That's a little bit easier on my eyes. It's a bit less obnoxious than the just solid blue, solid green that we had before. But what's crucial here is this idea that you can create any of your own colors by just going ahead and finding colors on some sort of RGB picker. I like this W3 School ones. There is one just on Google. You can find many other ones. You can look around for your preferred one. And then you can make your own colors and you can use them as you want in your drawings. You can draw lots of different shapes. So let's go ahead and create some sort of little thing to move around our screen. So I'm just going to start off by drawing a little rectangle, and we're going to have a rectangle that we're going to move, across. Actually, let's do clouds. That's a better idea. We're going to do clouds and have clouds move across the screen like there's a little breeze. So to do clouds, we're going to use ovals and circles. It's very similar to a rectangle, except we're going to use ellipse. So I'm going to do PyGame.draw.ellipse. I'm still going to draw it on the screen. I need to set a color that I'm going to draw it to, and we have white, so I'm going to make my clouds white. And then we're going to set a list with the same X, Y, width, height. And then the very last thing that we can do is the value at the end of the ellipse tells us the fill. So if you use 0, it's going to draw a solid shape. If you use any number bigger than 0, it's going to draw an outline. So I'll show you both of those. We're just going to use 0 now. And then I'll show you one that's not that, okay? So I'm going to set the X and Y coordinates. I know I want it to be about in the top of the screen, so let's just start with 1010. I don't want it to be the full width of the screen, which is 700, but maybe 100. I'm going to make it a little bit shorter than it is tall. We'll run that. That should draw an ellipse or circle on the screen. Just so that you note, this is the width diameter and this is the height diameter. So if you want to draw a perfect circle, you just make those the same size. So we have a little white circle here. That's with a fill of 0. So you can see that it's a solid white circle. The difference is if we make this like a 1 or a 2 or some bigger number and run it, we'll get a white outline of the same shape. So now you notice you have an outline of the shape. So if you want a solid cloud, which I do for the purposes of this, I'm going to do a 0. If I wanted to, say, outline my cloud in black, I'm not sure that you would want to do that, but you could. I would just copy the same shape, make it an outline, change the color to black. And this is going to draw on top of it, so this should be fine. And now I have a black outline around my white circle. It's a little bit messy. Doesn't look as pretty as you would like. But it's a way of doing outlines if you want to. Okay, now for a cloud, clouds aren't usually just plain ovals. Actually, let's stick with plain ovals for now. And then we'll do slightly more interesting things. Okay, so we have a cloud in the top corner, and we want it to be able to move across the screen. So let's say we have a single cloud and it's just going to move across the screen and then reappear on this side and start moving again. So what we're going to need for this cloud to move is we're going to be able to need to change the X value. So remember in this list here, we have X, Y, width, height. So we're going to go ahead and instead of putting 10 here, we're just going to set it to cloud X. Okay? Then we want to make sure that we've initialized and declared this variable. So right up here where I was declaring all the values, I'm going to declare cloudx is equal to, let's say 0. So it starts right at the start of the screen. We'll just run that, make sure it doesn't break. So now the cloud starts right at the beginning of the screen. If we want the cloud to appear starting off the screen and then move on, we can actually use negative values. So our cloud is width 100. So we can do negative 100 for the X value, and it will be off the screen. It's actually, our cloud is right here. It's just not on the screen. If you want to still be able to see it, do slightly less than the width. So for example, negative 80 should have 20 pixels on the screen. So what we're going to do is we're going to start it there, and what we want to do is move it to the right. So as it moves to the right, the X value is going to increase. So all we need to do is draw the circle and then increase the X value. So cloud X is equal to cloud X plus the amount we want it to change per frame. So if you do 1, it will move. It's just going to move slowly. That's actually a pretty nice effect for how fast you want a cloud to be moving. But so all it's doing is it's drawing the cloud, it's changing the X by 1 pixel, it's showing the graphics, and then when it comes through, it clears the screen, it draws the background, and it redraws the cloud, but at the new X location. And it's doing that at 60 frames per second, which is why it's appearing to be animated across the screen. If you want it to go faster, you can change this value. One warning I will give you is that the higher you make this value, the more likely it's going to start looking like it's kind of jumping across the screen. If we turn this up to 50, I just went too quick. So 1 was actually a really good speed for our cloud to move across our screen. And that's how we can do simple animations. We can change the X and Y position of the shape we're showing. Because it's redrawing the whole screen every time, you're going to see it look like it's moving. It's kind of like a flipbook animation. It's because the sky blue is being drawn over it. If we get rid of the sky blue and the fill white, there's nothing drawing over the cloud, so the cloud just keeps drawing over itself, which gives you kind of a look of a thing streaking across your screen. So if you want to create some sort of streaking animation, that's what you need to do, is not have a background filling behind it. But we're going to leave it with the background filling. We don't actually need this if we're going to do a background. Okay, so this is how you can draw some simple shapes. You can draw rectangles, you can draw ellipses, you can draw triangles, and some other things like that. And those are all really useful. You can do some cool things with them. You can use functions to create your own shapes. But a lot of you are thinking, okay, I'm not the most artistic, especially when I'm working with, you know, rectangles and squares and circles. It's hard to make things look good. I want to use some different graphics. Or maybe you used a tool like Pascal, or some other tool to create your own sprites. Maybe you went on Spriter's resource and you found some sprites and you're like, I really want to import this sprite that I created myself, or this sprite that I found on an online resource. So how can I go about doing that? That's what I'm going to show you in the next video, is how to import background images and import sprite characters so that you can use existing images and get them moving around. In the next video, I'm also going to show you how to use arrow keys or your mouse to get your character to respond to the user. Because right now this is just a straight animation. There's nothing we can do. I can hit all the keys on my keyboard and nothing's going to change. That cloud's just moving across the sky. But if we have a player character that we want to move around, that's going to be slightly different. So that's what I'll show you in the next video. But for this one, you can start animating and drawing pictures and playing around with shapes.